into a new future. And you have to be able to go through life, you have to be able to deal with the future that you've branched off into. You can't look back and say, what if? You know what I mean? You can't do that. You have to look ahead. You always have to look ahead.
But how do you know if, like, what?
You don't. I don't even know what you're going to say, and you don't know. You don't know tomorrow. You don't know tomorrow. I tell my son, live every day. Work a little. Study a little. Eat something good. Have some fun. Maybe your last. Don't live every day like it's your last day, because you may live for 50 more years. But have some fun every day. Do something for your future every day. Have some fun every day. Eat something good every day. Don't eat trash. Eat something good. Eat something you like. Doesn't mean eat a lot of it or overeat. Live life like every day is your last day. Just don't do it all in one day. You know? Have you guys had anybody your age, you know, like at your school, that's been killed?
Yeah.
I hear friends talk about at my age losing their fathers. Their fathers are in their 70s and 80s. Be glad you had them that long. I come home from all this and my father dies in my arms 6 months within me being home. The best friend I had in the world left. And he just said, I can't breathe. Took him to the hospital and they were getting ready to operate on him, and he started hyperventilating. And I said, Pop, come on, man. Come on. Breathe with me. And he said, dude, I'm trying. And he exploded. You could just hear him internally just come apart. Artery blew off of his heart. He had an aneurysm. Well, it just burst everything inside of him. And he died. And everything I had been through, I come home, and that was the best friend I had left. And I'm 21 years old. Yeah. 6 weeks. Yeah. 5 weeks after he died, I turned 22. I turned 23. I was 22 when he died. I was 21 when I got hurt. But I'm home 6 months, and he just dies right there in front of me. That was 31 years ago. And I just saw him 5 minutes ago. He's with me. I can hear him. You know. He'll never leave me. Just like your mother will never leave you. You have a child someday. You know, and you're gone. That child will carry you with them. It's what we do. It's what keeps our species going. You have to be grateful for what you have. Even if you don't have much. You have to be grateful. Are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
You taking this to heart? I hope when you're my age, you remember this. Value everything. Value everything in life. If you get knocked down, get up. Brush yourself off and go on. Don't dwell on it. Keep moving forward. Don't ever dwell on the past. The past is the past. Tomorrow, future. You always have to work towards your future. Because if I hadn't done that, I still wouldn't walk. hardest part about all of this for me was learning how to walk. I had to learn how to walk like a baby. If I hadn't have fought through that, if I hadn't gone through all that pain, if I hadn't gone through all that therapy, I would have never walked. You have to persevere. What are we doing?
So, I think since we didn't catch the beginning, we just start from the beginning. So what branch did you say you were in?
Navy, United States Navy.
And what did you? What was like a day-to-day before anything happened to you? What did you do in the Navy?
Well, after I went to boot camp and then I went to my school, which my school was learning how to do payroll, I paid nuclear submariners. They would go to sea for 6 months, and I would pay them in advance so that they could pay their bills, their rent, like if they were married, or even if they were single and they had car payments, so they could pay them. And then there was another crew that was inshore while that crew was out to sea with the submarine, and I paid them. I went into an office building, and it was like having a payroll job for a company. It's just what I landed in.
And did you know this when you went into boot camp, like this is what you wanted to do, or did you see yourself more as in active combat?
There wasn't a war, so when I joined, they gave me a list of jobs that I qualified for, and I got to pick out of those jobs, which one I wanted to do. And I wanted to go to college, so doing payroll, and while I was in the service, I figured was, good experience to go to college and get an accounting degree, which is what I did.
On the day of your accident, when you were traveling with your girlfriend and her family, where were you guys going?
Sarasota, Florida. We were going from Charleston, South Carolina to Sarasota, Florida to go deep sea fishing in the Gulf of Mexico.
And I know that it might be hard, but if you could walk us through what happened that day, give me time.
Well, I'd asked for leave, my vacation time that I had earned, and me and her family set off for a trip to go and see some of their family in Sarasota, Florida, and go fishing. And we were almost there. We had driven all day, and it was just after midnight. And we all stopped at a gas station, got something to drink, did what people do, stood in the parking lot for about 10 minutes and talked, and got back in the car, and 20 minutes down the road, life changed.
And you said it was a drunk driver.
Drunk driver going in the wrong direction on a separated interstate highway. 6 lanes, 3 lanes each direction with a concrete wall down through the middle. He went down an exit ramp as an entrance ramp and went the wrong way. And he began hitting cars at a high rate of speed until he hit me head on. He sideswiped 4 cars, and when he came off the last one, he shot over all 3 lanes and hit me head on. And that would be pretty much the end of my active military duty, because I go to the hospital. I go to the nearest, the ambulance takes me to the nearest hospital. It didn't have to be a military hospital. They took me to Tampa General Hospital, and I lived there for 2 months. Was operated on there 3 times. And then I was transported across town, and the Air Force picked me up in a flying hospital plane and took me back to the Navy, which I went into a Navy hospital.
And you, at this point, have only been in the Navy for about a year or so.
I've been in 13 months. I went in August 2nd of 1982, and my accident was September 3rd of 1983. And then I got discharged on August 22nd, 1984. So I was in the service for 24 months, 20 days, and half of it was in the hospital. So my experiences with the military are not very common.
Not like the average veteran.
Not like the average veteran. No.
But as you said before, you were discharged like as if you had gone to combat.
Yeah.
And been hurt.
Yeah.
And you said that you don't find that fair, but I
because I'm put into the same category as people that go and fight for our country. I wasn't fighting for our country. It's not my rules.
I think you're fighting for yourself. I mean, like we discussed earlier that, you're not immune to life just because you joined the military. And I think that this was a perfect example. Like, you were just living your life. You were going to go have a great time in Florida, and life happened. And I think that just because you weren't hurt in active combat doesn't make you any less of a veteran. And that's why I find it fair that you got the same benefits as if you had been hurt in combat.
Many people have told me that. For 30 years, many people have told me that. It makes sense. But when you're on my side of the fence and you have a heart, it just seems different. It seems different that, like today, we have guys that go to Afghanistan and Iraq and get their leg blown off. And I'm treated the same way they are. They get their leg blown off by a makeshift bomb that someone sits and watches them walk by it and they set it off. And I get treated the same way that they do. It's different. You're not part of that. Maybe a disabled veteran, but you don't feel part of that group. That group was hurt by the enemy. I was hurt by a fellow American, just on a Friday night with his car. So, I mean, it's not... I understand what everybody says, like what you just said. And I understand it, but when it's you feel differently about people that have been shot and blown up. You find them in a different class than yourself. I'm a non-combat disabled veteran, hurt in the line of duty. My discharge papers in the line of duty. And they say the same thing. They were hurt in the line of duty. It was my line of duty quite the same as a person in combat. It's easy to set as a person that didn't go through it and say, well, yeah, but you should, be treated with the same benefits and the same care as them. But when it's you, no, you take him first. Like when you're at the hospital, you want to say, no, take him first. He was hurt in the war. But they'll take me first because I was hurt in the line of duty. When you're treated at VA hospitals, that's one of the things that's different. If your injuries are in the line of duty, they take care of everything. So they take care of me just like as if I was hurt in combat. And I was at a desk in South Carolina. It wasn't in Afghanistan, or at that time it would have been Lebanon, Beirut. Because while I was there was a car bomb that guy drove into the Marine barracks in Beirut and killed 263 Marines while they were asleep. There wasn't a war going on, but there was kind of a war going on. There was the terrorism. There was the beginning of what the guys are fighting for now. It was the beginning of it then. It started before that, but it was kind of intensifying during those times. We didn't have a declaration of war. Even if we did, I was in South Carolina. I wasn't on a ship out fighting some other country's navy or airplanes. It's a strange position to be in. I served. I joined to fight for my country if need be, but it wasn't wartime. And then I come out of it treated as if I had been hurt in war. I was scared when it happened to me that, I was in the civilian world. I was off duty. I was going fishing. I was in a car wreck. I was hit by a drunk driver. I was so confused when I was in the hospital. I thought I was in trouble. I figured I was going to be discharged from the service, you know. And instead, they come in and they want to take care of me. You know, they don't want to just discharge me. They want to discharge me and, you know, continue taking care of my medical problems, pay me a pension. I'm 22 years old. It's kind of hard to take. You're retired. You're no good anymore. Go home. Still the same result. Still the same thing what they do with guys today. Guys get hurt over there, get a leg blown off, they come home, they take care of them, and they tell them, we're going to take care of your medical needs, we're going to pay you each month, and good luck in the world. In my day, they didn't help people with their mind. At least today, they're trying to help these guys with their minds. They realize that these guys have watched friends be killed. They've watched friends get their legs blown off. They've seen things that's going to haunt them for the rest of their lives. So although there's two different lines here from me and them, they kind of come back to the same point. That after something happens to you, it's yours to have to deal with the rest of your life. Nobody can really help you. They can talk to you. But guys, we have veterans today who commit suicide all the time because of the trauma they went through. They can't deal with it. They wake up screaming at night. I woke up screaming at night, sweating, screaming, no, seeing the last flash of that car coming at me. Maybe they wake up screaming, no, that bomb just went off. It still kind of leads you back to the same path of you're left with your mind. And to be left in the dark with your mind is a very dangerous thing. When you've been through something like that because you won't let it go. So my service time is quite unique, quite different, dumbfounding.
And you dealt with that like alone for 22 years, you said, before you sought that help.
Yeah.
You kind of.
Yeah, I was being an egotistical male and saying I'm all right, I'm okay. But inside, I was destroying myself the whole time. I was living a secluded life, hiding behind a big full beard, great big like a hillbilly beard. And I later learned that was a sign of trying to hide. I was hiding my face. I was kind of unrecognizable. People I grew up with don't really even know. They have no idea what I went through. And I saw them years afterwards, and I'd never talk about it. There was certain people that would say, didn't you get hurt while you was in the service? Yeah, I did. What's happening with you? You know, I would just brush over it. And, oh, I'm okay. I gotta go. And, you know, I'd leave because I needed to go someplace and shake. And be able to say out loud, my leg is killing me, my leg hurts, because I wouldn't do it in front of other people. Kind of a stigma of shame that you don't feel whole anymore. You don't feel like the strong young male that you were. And you want to hide from the world because you become afraid of it. And you have to deal with those problems when they happen. You can't sit and let them fester like I did. Although I didn't drink myself to an idiot, I didn't drink at all. I beat myself up emotionally. I didn't beat myself up with drugs or alcohol. I didn't do drugs or alcohol. I had jobs that tested me for those kinds of things. So it wasn't like I was doing that and trying to hide it. And now my way of dealing with it was to hide. Was to hide from the world.
What has happened?
I know I was like, isn't that Michaela's computer?
She knows my password. I do want to backtrack though.
Yeah.
Will you talk about how you grew up in a military family? Like how that was growing up?
And how that affected the way that you dealt with this.
I was raised by a Marine that went into combat when he was 17 years old. And our floors were not floors, they were decks. Our walls were not walls, they were bulkheads. It was like you were in boot camp. When you were a child, you did what he said. He wasn't mean. You weren't afraid of him. But just there was something about him, you could tell he'd been through things. And he told us everything that he'd been through. So we got to hear all of his war stories. And when I grew up, it made me feel obligated to go into service. My father had served. He'd served in wartime. And I felt like I should too. It wasn't a war, but I felt like I should serve in the military. But being raised by him was very interesting and a very good way to be raised. And he was a person that could talk about everything that he had seen in the war. I mean, it bothered him. You could tell when he talked, it bothered him. The things that he'd saw, the people that he had killed, it bothered him. But like he always said, if he didn't kill them, they were going to kill him. Because his was hand to hand. He was in Korea and there was 25,000 American soldiers and the Chinese invaded with 300,000 men. And it was 40 below zero. And they were cut off from help. And they had to survive in the frozen Korea Arctic. And that never left him. Everything you did, he taught you to take care of yourself. Because it could lead to very bad things if you don't. He saw people froze to death sitting right next to him, talking to him. They'd be talking to him 1 minute, and the next minute you reach over and touch them, and they were frozen solid. They froze to death. He laid in piles of dead bodies to keep warm. So he had a way about him. The question was about him, how it was like being raised by him. You could tell there was something there. He was strict and loving, but you could tell that he had spirits haunting him. Things he saw, things he did. So he was tender. You know, he was a Marine, he was tough, but yet he was very loving and very tender. And he died very young because of a lot of the trauma that he went through and never sought any help for, because he did treat his with alcohol. You know, I mean, he drank on weekends because of it. I look back now, I know that's why he drank the way he did on weekends, because he was traumatized. He was trying to hide from seeing all those people killed, seeing people froze to death, and Chinese soldiers sneaking up on him in the middle of the night into his foxhole, and him having to stick his bayonet through him. It bothered him. My father wasn't a killer, but I asked him as a child one time, "Pop, did you ever kill anybody in the war?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "How many?" He said, "I don't know. A lot." Did you see them? Some of them. Some of them I was face to face with. Some of them I had to stick the bayonet of my gun through them. Some of them I shot from 300 yards away, so I didn't see their faces. Some of them I shot through trees, and they were in, treed areas, and he was just shooting. And he assumed, when the gunfire stopped, that he had killed some of them. And it bothered him. Whether it was war and they were the enemy or not, they were human beings, and he didn't like killing them. But he didn't like being killed either. So he fought.
Did the way that you were raised and the way, like, your experience, did that affect how you chose to raise your son?
No. I mean, I guess some of those things could have been in me naturally, not naturally, but learned from my father, kind of a military way of doing things, and maybe I did my son in some ways, unconsciously. So, I mean, maybe the answer to your question is yes, and I really didn't think about it. But just like with him, I've always taught him to be kind. Don't be mean to people. Be kind to people. Hold doors open for people and be respectful. It's hard to say if that's part of the way I raised. That's very interesting to me because I don't know if that's why I raised him, with some of the values I tried to instill in him, or if that's who I would have been anyway. I don't know. Maybe. The answer to my final answer would be maybe, I guess, if I have to.
Do you think that, did you have your son go into the military at all? Or do you think that was something that you tried to not push him towards because you didn't want him to have?
My oldest son is 22. My youngest son is 18. I said 10 years ago, this is 2016, and I said 10 years ago, the way that we fight now, the way we send 8 soldiers off into Afghanistan to go out on a patrol and we leave them without any kind of air cover, anybody to come in and get them, any kind of force to come in and save them, and we just leave them. They can't have my sons. I would not allow my sons to go into today's military. And I've said that for 10 years. They were little boys, and I said, this country can never have my sons as soldiers, ever again. Because they'll go off and leave them. We have stories in Iraq and Afghanistan about 4 men going in to do a job and being left and not getting any help from our own people. They sent them in there. And one of them walked out. We have a movie that's called that, Soul Survivor. And it's not my sons. They can't have my sons. I would hide my sons and I would go to jail before I let this country have my sons in the military. I have family that fought in the Civil War, Revolutionary War, World War II, World War One. I think the only war that this country's ever had that I don't have family that fought in is Vietnam. I don't really know anybody in my family that fought in Vietnam. I had an uncle that was in the military during Vietnam, and it says on his discharge papers Vietnam era, but he was never in Vietnam. He was in Germany. So no one in my family fought in Vietnam, and that's the only war this country's ever had that no one in my family's ever fought in. And I would never let my children join this military and fight for this country again. Because there's too many tragedy stories of them going off and leaving them. Sending them out on crazy patrols and leaving them. And I won't have, because then I'd have to go over there and try to find them. And we don't want that.
And then you'd begin your active duty.
Right. Right. But I'd have to go with them. If they took them. I mean, if they forced me, they took them. But no, I won't let them. I've told them both, you're not to go into the military. We've done enough.
Did they show interest in the military?
None.
Because they knew how you'd react, or because they just didn't have an interest?
Some of both. Some of both. They know how I'd react, and they didn't really have the interest. Times are different. And being a patriot, you're called a warmonger. Today, to try to protect your country, there's people that look at you as if you want to go and kill people when you just are trying to protect your country. And I don't want my sons going into the military and being portrayed as warmongers or getting killed and being left by our government. And someone like the woman that lost the presidency last night calling me up and telling my sons were killed by such and such while they did nothing to go and find them. While they were screaming on the radio, come and help me. We're under attack. Please send someone to help us. And we leave them. Not my sons. They're not going to send my sons to some embassy in some Muslim country that hates us. And I have to hear radio calls from my son begging for help from the government, from the military. No. It's different. Times are different. Times have changed. We're trying to move to a push-button, non-combative war. I bomb you, and I'm flying a drone from San Diego, and I bomb you in Afghanistan, and I'm driving this plane from a computer. Well, that's what war's turned into for us. Other countries aren't quite that technologically advanced. But we want to have wars with no casualties. We don't want to kill any of the enemy. We don't want to have any of our people killed, but we want to go to war. Oh, and for God's sake, we don't want to kill any civilians. They're innocent. And people have lost the fact that war is hell. It's not good for anything. It does no one any good. So no, they can't have my children for something that will do no one any good, except for me losing my children. Then I'd have that to deal with the rest of my life. Then I might start drinking. Because I can't lose my sons.
Do you think that you joined the military because of your family background, or do you think it was more of like a personal choice? Or did it like have any way in your decision?
I didn't tell anyone that I was doing it. I didn't tell my parents. I went and joined. I don't know that I felt obligated. And maybe there was a part of me that felt obligated. Like I said, my father had done it. My ancestors before that had done it. We've always been kind of a military family, and I kind of felt like it was a good direction for me to go. Times were really bad at that time. Jobs were hard to find, and the economy was really bad. I was young and I was adventurous. I'd already worked in the oil fields in Alaska. When I got out of high school, I went to Alaska and worked in the oil fields. When those jobs started drying up, I wanted to do something. And I saw the military as the only way of, it sounds kind of silly, but it was the only way for adventure. It was the only way to, maybe see parts of the world. Maybe to do something that I'd never get another chance to do again. At 18 years old, I'd already been to the North Pole. And I think a year later when I joined the service, it made me kind of hungry for just adventure instead of just living in Kansas.
Would you do it again without your injury?
Absolutely. I wouldn't change anything. I mean, sure, I'd like to, not be injured, but the cards I was dealt, and I'd do it again. I'd hope that the injury didn't happen, but I would do it again. You can't look back and say, well, if you weren't hurt, would you do that again? I mean, I didn't join saying, oh my God, I might get hurt. You're not thinking like that. When you're young and you're joining the service, you're not really thinking like that. I'm going to be one of those casualties. You're not thinking like that. I feel sorry for some of these guys around me because they're not going to make it. If it's wartime, that's the way you feel. I'm going to make it. Some of you may not. But that youth thing, you're invincible. You don't think it'll ever happen to you. No one's ever joined the service, even during wartime, and said, I'm going to go give my life for my country. I'm going to go and watch some of these other guys die from our country, and I'm going to fight. I'm going to live through it. But some of my buddies aren't going to make it. That's what people think. They don't think, oh, I'm going to go and, I'm going to go and lose my life in war. I'm going to make it. Everyone thinks they're going to make it. You can't go into something like that and saying, well, I'm not going to make it through this. But yeah, no, I'd go back and do it. I'd go back and do it again. It was good for me.
You think you grew as a person because of it?
Just from going into the service? Or
All
that?
of it?
Or, oh, absolutely, from all of it. From going into the service, before I was hurt, I learned a lot. I started learning a lot about life at a very young age. There's no one around here to take care of me. This isn't daycare. Nobody's going to babysit me. I have to take care of myself and do what they say. Yeah, of course you change as a person and you have to grow as a person or they'd eat you alive. With inspections and orders and things you have to learn. You'd never get anywhere. It's not a bad life. If there's not a war, it's not a bad life. I can't say what it's like during the war because I wasn't there for a war. But even with what happened to me with it all, I have no I have no regrets of wishing I didn't do it. Even if I did, it doesn't help. I still did it. Once you reach a certain point in life, you can't go back. So I don't really dwell on that. I don't really even think about it. But of course, you had to grow as a person. You're growing as a person from high school. You grow as a person from everything you do. Well, not everybody grows as a person, but most people do. Some people, no matter what they go through, aren't going to grow as a person. It's true.
Right. I think it's
I think it's still
solid.